It's February 8th, 2024, and a young Taiwanese crypto developer is preparing for a potentially life-changing meeting. He's been contacted by a team of investors from Fabric VC, one of the biggest crypto-related venture capital funds in the world. However, since his English isn't that good, they request him to download a special meetings app that includes a real-time translation feature. But what he doesn't know is that all of this was a lie. The team didn't exist, their promises were lies, and the translation app was nothing other than a Trojan virus. Once it's installed, it silently infects the young man's device, giving a group of unknown hackers access to all of his crypto accounts. Within moments, over $130,000 worth of NFTs and possibly hundreds of thousands in cryptocurrencies are stolen. However, the hackers were unaware that their target wasn't just some ordinary crypto developer. Instead, he was the secret owner of Incognito, one of the largest illegal dark web marketplaces in the world, and stealing most of his money would trigger a series of events that put the entire dark web drug economy in jeopardy. This is the story of Pharaoh, the dark web's most hated kingpin. This video is brought to you by NordPass, but more on that later on. March 12th, 2020, Taiwan. This is Pharaoh, a dark web enthusiast who just finished drafting a simple diagram labeled Workflow. It outlines vendors, buyers, product listings, encrypted PGP keys, API tokens, and servers. But Pharaoh isn't planning a new retail venture. Instead, he's strategizing the launch of his own dark web marketplace. Dark web marketplaces are illegal online stores that sell everything from drugs to hacking tools and even weapons. However, these markets are only accessible through specialized browsers like Tor. These browsers provide access to both the clear web and the dark web, with the latter being a hidden part of the internet because it's not indexed by traditional search engines. The dark web is basically an uncensored space where people can post, sell, and buy anything they want. Furthermore, while accessing the dark web is allowed, engaging with dark web markets or partaking in other sketchy activities remains illegal. Either way, Pharaoh had been studying dark web marketplaces like Silk Road and Alphabay. He's realized that selling everything would attract too much attention and decides to create a drug and anonymity-centered market called the Incognito Marketplace, a playful allusion to Google's incognito mode. However, after finalizing his diagram, he saves it and sends it to his personal Gmail account, a small action that would have major repercussions later on. Sometime in November of 2020, a new subthread called the Incognito Market emerges on the popular dark web forum Dread. The mysterious admin invites several people into this closed community and creates two foundational posts about the market. The posts go over the market's guidelines on what is allowed on the site and explain that their objective is to make purchasing drugs safer than if someone bought them from the streets. Shortly after, the admin deletes his account and vanishes forever, leaving the newly invited people questioning if they could trust this new market project. However, only hours later, another account going by Incognito Official steps in and answers the questions by saying that, quote, "Users will buy drugs and disappear, no tracking and no tracing," unquote, adding that the mysterious creation of the subthread was just another way to prove their commitment to anonymity. At the same time, Pharaoh also starts appearing on the subthread, where he establishes himself as the main authority behind the Incognito project, marking the official beginning of one of the most insane dark web sagas in history. This is Ben, a dark web drug vendor who's trying to expand his business. He just received an important call from one of his partners. Apparently, a new marketplace called Incognito just opened its doors and was actively searching for new vendors. For Ben, this is great news, and he doesn't waste any time signing up. He visits the site through Dread, enters his credentials, and completes a simple CAPTCHA to finalize the registration process. However, becoming a vendor wasn't that easy. After signing up as a normal user, aspiring sellers had to create a job application. This is basically a drug dealer's CV and must include past vendor experiences, recommendations from other marketplaces, and a signed PGP message. This resume was then sent to Incognito's team, who would analyze the information and decide whom they'd accept or not. But back to Ben. He spent the day writing his resume and just sent it off. However, to complete the process, he also had to pay a $1,500 bond to Incognito. It turns out that every seller, unless they were already a highly trusted vendor, would have to pay a fee that ranged from $300 to $1,500, and only via the cryptocurrencies Bitcoin or Monero. The next day, Ben logs on to Incognito and sees that the team has accepted his application and sent him a bunch of extra details to his PGP address. PGP, or Pretty Good Privacy, is an encryption method and a communication service used by most people on the dark web. When you send a message through PGP services, it encrypts the message into unbreakable codes, which are then sent to the recipient, who is the only person that can decrypt said message. To achieve this, PGP uses a system of public and private keys. Each user has a public key, which they share with others, and a private key, which is kept secret. The public key allows others to encrypt messages that can only be decrypted by the corresponding private key. PGP's convenient and secure communication characteristics make it very popular among criminals and a headache for law enforcement, who can never decrypt these messages. Using PGP is crucial for dark web users, but even if you're not involved in the dark web, your data will almost certainly still end up there. Recently, AT&T suffered a breach, exposing information on over 73 million customers, including names, emails, and passcodes. Such incidents are part of a broader trend, with around 80% of consumers having at least some data leaked on the dark web. This is problematic because many people use the same email and password combinations across multiple accounts, significantly increasing the risk of their accounts being compromised. Even worse, if people use the same credentials for personal and workplace accounts, these hackers can infiltrate an entire workplace system, causing significant damage to businesses by stealing data and funds. All it takes is for a single employee's data to be hacked and leaked on the dark web. To protect yourself and your business, it's essential to use unique, complex passwords for each account. However, managing numerous strong passwords can be challenging. This is where a password manager like NordPass comes in. NordPass generates, stores, and autofills strong passwords, ensuring that each account is protected by a unique, hard-to-crack password. Additionally, NordPass monitors leaked databases and alerts users if their data appears in a breach, providing an extra layer of security. NordPass also offers features like email masking, 24/7 support, and a great UI that makes it super easy to use. I can't recommend NordPass enough, because once someone's credentials are on the dark web, they're there forever. So choose the safe route and use the code THINKER at nordpass.com/thinker to get a free 3-month trial of NordPass Business. No credit card required. Going back to Ben, over the next few months, he starts selling his products to hundreds of customers. The demand keeps growing, and eventually it exceeds his capabilities, forcing him to expand his operations. Lights, pH checkers, fertilizers, seeds, soil. He gets everything he needs and without any major issues, and rents out a small warehouse in a nearby village. Either way, Incognito was truly on its way to becoming a big player in the dark web market economy. The market had finally gained the trust of the wider dark web community for several good reasons. Pharaoh was always asking for feedback and implementing almost monthly updates, something that was highly appreciated by the community. Incognito's team also seemed to handle disputes between vendors and customers extremely well. For example, in one case, a vendor who went by WSB promised a completely unrealistic price for certain drugs. The community quickly noticed this, downvoted his promotional post, and warned everyone that he had a reputation for scamming people on other markets. But even despite the warnings, WSB continued to operate, and complaints about his behavior started to pile up. The Incognito team eventually reviewed his account, banned him, and decided to take the money from his account and send it to all of the customers who didn't get the promised products. WSB then went on Dread to complain. However, instead of receiving support, he was exposed for having over 50 undelivered orders, 30 disputed orders, a negative score of almost 300 vendor points, and many complaints about his business. The truth is that Incognito's team was very active in banning fraudulent vendors and were also highly active on their subdread. Either way, everything seemed to be going according to plan, and with the disappearance of other marketplaces like Dark Code Reborn and White House, Incognito was slowly climbing to the top. And then came the 5th of April, 2022.
The largest and longest-running illegal marketplace in all the world is shut down. Officials in Germany made that announcement today. The operation, part of a months-long effort with the U.S. Justice Department. The illegal marketplace called Hydra Market.
Hydra enabled users in mainly Russian-speaking countries to buy and sell a staggering variety of illicit goods and services, including illegal drugs, stolen financial information, fraudulent passports, and even hacking tools and hacking services.
It does not matter how well you conceal your assets. It does not matter how cleverly you write your malware or hide your online activity. The Justice Department will use every available tool to find you, disrupt your plots, and hold you accountable.
Hydra was the biggest marketplace at that time, and when it was taken down, it left a massive power vacuum in the dark web ecosystem. Thousands of vendors and buyers were now forced to migrate to other sites, and Incognito had positioned itself to become one of their main destinations. The influx of new users was so significant that from April to June, Incognito's monthly transaction value shot up from around $700,000 to $2 million per month. However, none of this was made by directly selling drugs. You see, most dark web marketplaces don't make money by selling their own products. Instead, they mainly make money through their banking and escrow services. To keep it short, there are three main participants in a dark web market: the customer, the marketplace's bank service, and the vendor. Now, if a customer wants to buy $1,000 worth of a product, he must first send this money to the site's bank, which is basically just a crypto wallet. Next, the marketplace will take a fee, which in Incognito's case was 5%, and the remaining money is then credited to the vendor's account. Keep in mind that the money is only credited to the vendor's account and will only be paid out if the seller requests a withdrawal, a fact that will play a major role later on. Either way, if Incognito's transaction volume was around $2 million per month, it would be equivalent to at least $100,000 in monthly profits for the Incognito team. This meant that Pharaoh was starting to make money, and a lot of it. But what he didn't know was that after Hydra's takedown, the US and their allies put their sights on a bunch of upcoming marketplaces, and one of them was none other than Incognito itself. Only one day after Hydra was taken down, the FBI started its investigation into Incognito. The officer in charge of the designated task force was a man named Mark Rubens. To start the case, he ordered 5 grams of drugs from the site. 6 days later, a package arrived at the designated pickup address, containing exactly what Rubens had ordered. In documents from the task force's investigation, he wrote that they purchased the substance for $170 in Bitcoin and used a drug test to confirm the authenticity of the drug. This verified that the market was real and thus a legitimate target for the FBI's task force. However, they only had 2 pieces of information to work with: the Bitcoin address that they used for their drug purchase and Pharaoh's Dread account. To understand how the FBI proceeded in the investigation, we need to take a step back and understand a few simple concepts related to crypto money laundering. First, we need to understand the difference between a Bitcoin wallet and an address. The wallet is where Bitcoin is stored, but every wallet needs an address to receive and send Bitcoins to other wallets. However, a single wallet can have an unlimited number of addresses, which obscures the activity of a certain wallet and helps hide its transaction structure. For example, in Incognito's case, whenever they acquired a new customer, they would create a new payment address. By creating hundreds or possibly thousands of addresses, they made it nearly impossible to identify the true scope of Incognito's activity. This is important because if the FBI knew every address associated with Incognito's business, they could analyze their activity and eventually discover a transaction that, instead of receiving Bitcoin, sent it to some sort of service. For example, an exchange that allows the user to sell crypto for normal currency, like the US dollar. And because most exchanges require the user to confirm their identity through a process known as KYC, a single outgoing transaction can reveal someone's real identity. Even if it was sent to an exchange that doesn't require the user to go through the KYC process, the authorities can request information on the user's associated bank account. And unless the bank is in a country with strong banking privacy laws, they won't have an issue revealing the identity of an alleged crypto criminal. This is why Pharaoh had to put another layer of obscurity into his money laundering process. He did not send the Bitcoin from Incognito's main wallet directly to an exchange. Instead, it went through at least one other wallet before it was sent to an anonymous swapping service. There, he would swap his Bitcoin for Monero, a cryptocurrency designed to be untraceable. Finally, Pharaoh would send this untraceable Monero to an exchange where he sold it for dollars. His money laundering scheme was solid and would be incredibly hard, if not impossible, to trace. However, this would only be the case if he didn't make any stupid mistakes, and unfortunately for Pharaoh, this is exactly what happened. On May 15, 2022, Pharaoh logged on to the Dread forum and complained that one of the swapping services he was using to launder his Bitcoin had declined to accept his funds, stating that they somehow figured out it came from criminal activities and straight up confiscated his funds. It's unknown why this happened, but posting about it on Dread was a massive mistake. The task force was monitoring his account and they quickly saw this post. Furthermore, Pharaoh mentioned exactly what time and how much BTC he sent to the swapping service. This gave the FBI everything they needed to know, and they started to search for both the transaction and the address associated with it. The address that made this transaction was part of what the task force called Admin Wallet 1, a wallet that directly received profits from Incognito's main bank wallet. They discovered that one of the addresses that pertained to Admin Wallet 1 was involved in yet another gigantic mistake. For whatever reason, Pharaoh used Admin Wallet 1 to partially pay for 4 domains on Namecheap, 3 of which were about promoting dark web markets. However, the 4th domain, which is not described in the investigation documents, was most likely a personal website with all the details about the owner, something that would play a major role later on. But remember that I said that Admin Wallet 1 only partially paid for them? This is because 3 of these domains were mostly bought by an account registered at a KYC'd crypto exchange. However, for unknown and probably really stupid reasons, the 4th domain was paid for by both the KYC'd account and Admin Wallet 1, which contributed a measly 0.00501 BTC, or $22.09, to complete the purchase that the KYC'd account couldn't finish. This single transaction directly linked whoever was behind the crypto exchange account with the person in charge of Admin Wallet 1, which, remember, is a wallet that received Incognito's profits and as such almost certainly belonged to Pharaoh. The only thing the authorities needed to do was to force the exchange to give them access to the KYC'd account, and this is exactly what happened. It turned out that the account belonged to a 23-year-old Taiwanese man called Lin Reizheng. Furthermore, the FBI also got their hands on the Namecheap account, which was also registered under Lin's name. And lastly, the personal website was about none other than Lin himself. This was a crucial breakthrough for the task force, who then began to infiltrate Lynn's life. Emails, social media accounts, domains, and any internet-related business connected to Lynn was being investigated. It's the early morning of July 19, 2022, and while Lynn is making himself a coffee, his phone notifications suddenly go crazy. For whatever reason, Incognito's servers had been taken down and the site wasn't working for anyone. Lynn frantically begins to search for solutions to get his servers back up, but what he didn't realize was that he was still logged into his personal Gmail account. Moreover, the reason that Incognito had gone offline wasn't some sort of bug. Instead, the FBI's task force had found and compromised the site's servers. Somehow, they found out that Lynn was associated with a server reseller that, quote, advertises itself as an entity which offers services to dark web marketplaces, unquote. The documents say that the reseller was foreign, so probably Eastern European or Russian, but that they leased the server from an unnamed company. My guess is that since the FBI was granted access to their servers, it was most likely some European company that owned the servers. Either way, once they got their hands on Incognito's servers, they copied all the marketplace's data, including information about all of Incognito's BTC addresses, and, more importantly, all of the seller and customer information. But the worst part was that while Lynn was frantically Googling for ways to fix his server issue, the FBI, who had infiltrated all of his personal Gmail accounts, could see these searches in real time. Using Gmail was another massive mistake, and once the FBI dug deeper into his account, they found even more incriminating evidence. For example, in an email from the 12th of March 2020, Lynn sent a diagram that perfectly described how Incognito operated to his own email account and probably forgot to delete this message. This, in addition to all of the other discoveries, once and for all proved that Lynn Ray Zhang was Incognito's admin known as Pharaoh. August 2023, Germany, NRW. At this point, Ben, the German weed vendor, is making a lot of money. Every day he processes dozens of orders, resulting in thousands of dollars in profit each week. He struck gold with Incognito, and 2 years after applying as a new vendor, he's risen to the upper echelon of sellers. He's got a ton of positive reviews and occasionally features on the vendor leaderboard, which attracts even more customers. Once a month, he travels to Eastern Europe, where he cashes out his profit at crypto ATMs, of course while covering his face. When asked about his money, he simply refers to a trust in the British Cayman Islands. But what he doesn't know is that while he's making thousands, the FBI has started investigating the site's vendors, including his account. And if this wasn't bad enough, a team of hackers was about to pull off one of the most consequential hacks in dark web history. October 2023, approximately. It's late at night when a team of unknown hackers and fraudsters come together to plan their next heist. Apparently, one of their members stumbled upon what seemed like an easy target, a 23-year-old Taiwanese crypto developer named Lynn Ray Zhang. They identified his Twitter account, where he frequently posted about the general state of crypto. He also shared his trades, showing off a bunch of big P&L numbers, bragging about being a level 3 VIP on Binance, and continuously revealing his new NFTs. With the information he revealed on Twitter, the hackers decided that attempting to hack him would be worthwhile, and they got to work. They created an entire business around a project called XApp, a meeting software similar to Zoom but with a twist. It could translate speech from each participant in real time. However, this was obviously a complete sham and nothing more than a ploy to get their victim to download the app onto their computer. Once they did, the app would infect their system and drain every crypto-related account. The translation feature and language issue were already perfect excuses to get Lynn to download the app, But getting him to even talk to them was another challenge. For this, they stole the credentials of employees who worked at Fabric VC, a well-known crypto venture capitalist fund, and reached out to Lin, telling him that they wanted to invest in one of his projects. The final step was to set up a serious meeting with Lin. February 8th, 2024, St. Lucia. Lin, who was working for the Taiwanese Foreign Ministry, had traveled to a small Caribbean island country called St. Lucia. Apparently, the Taiwanese embassy and St. Lucia's government had planned some joint activities. However, while he was there, he began communicating with what he thought was a team of investors from Fabric VC. He had scheduled a meeting with his associate that day. However, due to a supposed language barrier, the person requested that he download a special real-time translation meetings app called XApp. Lin downloads the app, and the alleged team almost immediately ceases to communicate with him. At that point, he realized that something was off. All of his crypto accounts had been drained. Everything, including a Bored Ape NFT, was gone, and even though it can't be confirmed, it's likely that a large sum of his illegal profit from Incognito was also stolen. However, the hackers were unaware that their actions would directly lead to what many call the biggest move in dark web history. February 20th, 2024. Only a few days after Lin has his money stolen, Ben tries to withdraw his money from Incognito's bank. However, as time goes by, nothing arrives. And he isn't alone. Many others start complaining about withdrawals not going through, fake transaction logs being generated by Incognito, and the site straight up acting weird. All of this eventually culminates in rumors about an exit scam. An exit scam is basically when a marketplace's admin takes all the money in the site's bank, steals it, and disappears, leaving everyone else wondering what just happened. Keep in mind that at this time, Incognito had built up a massive customer base of over 250,000 buyers and more than 1,000 vendors, all of whom stored some of their money with Incognito's bank, meaning that if Incognito were to exit scam, they would likely run off with at least $5 to $10 million of their community's money. Nonetheless, Pharaoh countered the rumors by stating that they were working on the issue and insisted, quote, "We're not scamming. Pinky promise," unquote. Only days later, the creator of the Dread forum himself, Hugbunter, published a post claiming that Incognito had indeed exit scammed and advised people not to deposit any more money into their bank. Hugbunter also claimed that Pharaoh tried to bribe him with Darknet Live, a dark web news portal that Incognito owned. In exchange for DNL, Hugbunter would remove all traces of Incognito and its team from the Dread forum. However, Hugbunter refused the bribe and stated that he couldn't be bought. Following this announcement, Darknet Live claimed that Hugbunter's post was a smear campaign designed to discredit Incognito and DNL. Strangely enough, after this announcement, DNL disabled comments on their site, which created even more confusion on the dark web. On March 10th, Lin, now using the username Staying Innovative, confirmed the exit scam on Dread and hinted at one final surprise from Incognito. However, it wasn't a gesture of goodwill or an apology. Instead, the site displayed a message that nobody could have anticipated. Expecting to hear the last of us yet? We got one final little nasty surprise for y'all. We've accumulated a list of private messages, transaction info, and order details over the years. Surprise, surprise. Anyway, if anything were to leak to law enforcement, I guess nobody never slipped up. We'll be publishing the entire dump of 557,000 orders and 862,000 crypto transaction IDs at the end of May. Whether or not you and your customers' info is on that list is totally up to you. And yes, this is an extortion. Thank you all for doing business with Incognito Market. In order for vendors to have their data deleted, they were charged up to $20,000. However, people like Ben, who only used PGP, were safe because even if authorities got their hands on their messages, they couldn't decrypt them. But dozens of other vendors had completely trusted Incognito's service and were now in deep trouble. The situation was getting out of control. Some people paid the fee, others threatened Incognito, and the FBI was probably watching all of this unfold. And it's at this moment when Hugbunter entered the picture once again. In a post complaining about Incognito's extortion, Hugbunter commented that if Pharaoh released any data, he'd be, quote, totally unquote, insinuating that he had crucial information about him. Lynn then responded that he didn't believe him and threatened to start releasing seller information within the next 24 hours. However, Hugbunter, who knew Lynn's real name, invited him to chat through Jabber to prove his claims privately. It turned out that a few years ago, Lynn had mentioned some of his XMR nodes on Dread, and when Hugbunter scanned the web for these nodes, they only appeared on one site, an XMR node list that pointed to none other than Lynn's personal website. We don't know what else was revealed during their conversation, but after this private discussion, Lynn stated that Hugbunter talked him out of releasing any information. Moreover, Lynn's final post claimed that the entire extortion ordeal was just an April Fool's prank, which was obviously just a cheap way to get out of this mess. So, we could say that Hugbunter didn't just save the community once, but twice. However, remember that the FBI had already raided the site's servers in 2022? This means that anyone who took the appropriate steps to disappear due to Incognito's doxing threats was now safe from the FBI, all without even realizing it. Either way, it seemed that Lynn had turned himself from being a victim of cybercrime into the perpetrator. He pulled off a successful exit, made millions in the process, and most likely ended the Incognito thread for good. However, the FBI was still on his trail. Yet, Lynn's connections to the Taiwanese government made extradition nearly impossible, forcing the FBI to wait for the perfect moment to arrest him. March 25th, 2024. It's early morning on a beach in St. Lucia, and Lynn is lounging on a beach chair with his laptop, preparing some notes for a seminar he's about to give. Ironically, he has been booked by the St. Lucian police to conduct a 4-day training on cryptocurrency and cybercrime prevention, funded by the Taiwanese embassy. This situation is so surreal that if I hadn't discovered his post about this seminar on LinkedIn, I wouldn't believe it myself. Either way, it's unclear what he did after the training, but he was likely either just enjoying life in St. Lucia or setting up some offshore infrastructure to launder his new wealth. But while Lynn was enjoying his time, the FBI had been tracking him since his stopover flight in Canada. Moreover, they noticed that Lynn made another crucial mistake when he booked his flight back to Taiwan. It's around 10 a.m. and Lynn is on a flight back home. However, this flight doesn't go directly to Taiwan. Instead, it has a stopover in the United States, specifically at the JFK airport in New York. The flight arrives at JFK in the afternoon, and after everyone exits the plane, Lynn decides to take a stroll around the airport. Suddenly, several FBI officers surround him, tell him to get on the ground, and arrest him on the spot. After 4 years of dark web activities, having helped sell over $100 million in drugs, and scamming and extorting his own customers for hundreds of thousands of dollars, Lynn ended up in the worst place possible, a U.S. jail. And when the news broke, no one celebrated more than the Dread Forum, which laughed about his arrest and couldn't believe just how stupid Lynn's mistakes were. Something that I have to include in this video is that he literally posted an analysis about dark web markets on his Twitter and included his own market, something that everyone was clowning him on Twitter for. He even features in a video where he talks about a DDoS prevention method which he used on his market as well.
About me, my name is Ling Ruixiang, and I'm currently an amateur backend and blockchain developer and an undergraduate at National Taiwan University. I also consider myself a crypto enthusiast.
It's truly insane how many mistakes this guy made. Either way, Lin will now begin his trial, and if he's found guilty, which seems to be the case, will serve a minimum of life in prison at only 23 years of age. Furthermore, because the FBI had already seized all his data, Lin has nothing left that he can offer to lower his sentence. Check out this video for more stories about the crazy digital world. This video is sponsored by NordPass, narrated by Erik Peabody.